No doctor could save the millionaire's son until a humble waitress stepped forward and did the impossible, leaving everyone speechless and the father in tears. Before we begin, I need to ask you something important. If you don't follow our channel right now, the algorithm might keep us apart forever. Your likes, your comments, and your shares are the only way we can stay connected. Don't let this be our last meeting. Hit that follow button now. Now, let's dive into the story. Ethan Blackwood adjusted his Italian silk tie for the third time in 10 minutes. His jaw clenched as he watched his 7-year-old son, Noah, struggle with his crutches across the marble floor of Blackwood Medical Center. The irony wasn't lost on him. Owning the most advanced private hospital on the East Coast, and yet being powerless to help his own child walk normally. "Mr. Blackwood, the Tokyo investors are waiting in conference room A," whispered Lauren Pierce, his assistant. Her voice was barely audible in the sterile hallway, lined with awards and accolades that suddenly felt meaningless. "Tell them I need 5 more minutes," Ethan said quietly, his steel-gray eyes never leaving Noah. The boy paused to rest, his small hands gripping the crutches with determination, a determination that both broke and strengthened his father's heart. Then, Dr. Alan Reed approached, holding a folder. His expression already carried disappointment. The experimental treatment from Switzerland showed no significant improvement, he said softly. "Ethan, I'm afraid we've exhausted most conventional options." Ethan's hands curled into fists. 3 years of searching, consulting with specialists from Harvard to Mayo Clinic, spending millions on cutting-edge treatments, and still, his son faced each day with a courage that humbled the most powerful CEO in the city. Noah's condition, a rare neurological disorder affecting his motor skills, that had stumped every expert they'd met. "Daddy," Noah asked with a small grin, "can we get lunch at that place with the really good grilled cheese?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Of course, buddy. Anything you want." He lifted Noah into his arms, crutches and all. The boy's laughter echoed through the corridor, a sound more precious than any profit margin Ethan had ever achieved. 20 minutes later, they arrived at Sonny's Diner, a modest little place Noah had discovered during one of their hospital visits nearby. Ethan felt overdressed in his $3,000 suit among the vinyl booths and checkered floors, but his son's excitement made any discomfort worthwhile. "Welcome to Sonny's, table for 2. The voice was warm, melodious, with an undertone of confidence that made Ethan look up from his phone. Standing there was Grace Carter, order pad in hand. Honey blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the standard black uniform, but something in her posture, her eyes, her calm grace, suggested she belonged somewhere far more sophisticated than this humble diner. "Yes, our usual table by the window," Ethan said curtly, already glancing back at his phone. Grace crouched down beside Noah, her smile natural and kind. "So, you must be Noah," she said. "I've heard you make the best grilled cheese recommendations in the entire city." Noah giggled, instantly charmed. "Daddy says I'm an expert because I've tried grilled cheese everywhere." "A connoisseur," Grace said seriously, as if discussing fine wine. "That's impressive. I bet you know exactly how the cheese should melt, don't you?" As they walked toward the booth, Ethan noticed her stride, confident, purposeful, almost clinical. She moved like someone used to high-pressure environments, not the casual rhythm of a small-town waitress. "Can I help you with those?" Grace asked, nodding toward Noah's crutches. Her tone was matter-of-fact kind, but without the awkward pity most adults showed. "I got it," Noah said proudly, maneuvering himself into the seat. I'm getting really fast with these. I can see that. Grace smiled. Your balance and coordination are excellent. Ethan caught something in her voice, not flattery, not small talk, but professional insight. You seem to know a lot about physical therapy, he said slowly. Not something I hear every day from a waitress. Grace's expression flickered a shadow of something unspoken, then smoothed into her professional smile. I've had some experience with mobility challenges, she said softly. Now, what can I get you gentlemen today? Grace took their order, writing quickly. Ethan found himself watching her hands, soft and well kept, but with calluses in odd places, not from carrying trays, but from work that demanded focus and precision. When she wrote, her penmanship was neat, deliberate, almost medical in its clarity. After she walked away, Noah leaned closer, whispering, "Daddy, she's really nice." Ethan didn't look up from his phone. "Yes, she seems adequate," but his eyes drifted again and again toward the kitchen where he could see Grace moving with quiet efficiency, almost choreographed. A few minutes later, she returned with their food. Noah was trying to open a stubborn packet of crackers, his small hands trembling with effort. Grace watched silently for a moment, then sat beside him. "May I show you a trick?" she asked gently. "Sometimes the angle makes all the difference." She guided Noah's hands, adjusting his grip with subtle precision, and the wrapper tore cleanly. "There you go," she smiled. "You just needed to engage your thumb muscles differently." Ethan nearly choked on his coffee. "Engage your thumb muscles? That wasn't something an average diner waitress would say." He set his cup down slowly. "Are you sure you're just a server here?" Grace's cheeks flushed faintly. "I serve food." "Yes. Is there something wrong with that?" Ethan's tone softened but stayed curious. "Nothing wrong with honest work. You just seem to have some interesting skills." Grace tilted her head slightly, meeting his eyes with a half smile. "People are full of surprises, Mr. Blackwood." The name recognition hit him instantly. He hadn't introduced himself. His expression sharpened. "I never mentioned my last name." For just a second, her eyes widened, then she recovered smoothly. "You're Ethan Blackwood. Your picture was in the business section last week, the medical center expansion. Plus," she added lightly, "Noah mentioned you own several hospitals during his grilled cheese consultation." Ethan smiled faintly, impressed by her quick recovery but not convinced. This waitress wasn't just well-read. She'd been trained to notice details. "Daddy, can Grace eat with us?" Noah asked suddenly. "She knows about thumb muscles and she likes grilled cheese too." Ethan opened his mouth to decline but hesitated. The diner was nearly empty. "If your father doesn't mind," Grace said softly, "I suppose I could take a short break." Ethan surprised even himself. "Please, join us." She slid into the booth across from them, and immediately instinctively adjusted Noah's posture, tilting his shoulders, repositioning his hand on the cup. She did it so naturally, it almost looked like muscle memory. Every instinct Ethan had from years in business whispered the same thing. This woman was hiding something, something big. He leaned back, studying her carefully. "So, Grace," he began, "what brought you to waitressing at Sonny's Diner?" The question landed like a test. Grace's fork hovered over her salad. She could feel his gaze sharp, analytical, dissecting every micro-expression. Noah, oblivious, munched happily on his sandwich. "Life doesn't always go according to plan," Grace said finally, her tone careful. "Sometimes we end up in places we never expected." Ethan raised a brow, intrigued. "That's remarkably philosophical for someone serving comfort food. I prefer to think of it as adaptable, she replied, a small smile curving her lips. It's amazing how much you can learn about people when you're not sitting behind a mahogany desk, making assumptions about their intelligence based on their job title. Ethan's eyes widened slightly, not from offense, but from surprise. That was not a casual answer. Touché, he said after a pause. Though, I'd argue curiosity about someone who discusses thumb muscle engagement with 7-year-olds isn't quite the same as making assumptions. Grace chuckled softly. Fair point. Noah looked up, eyes bright. Are you guys having one of those grown-up talks where you say one thing but mean something else? Grace laughed, a sound so genuine it softened the entire booth. Your son's exceptionally bright, Mr. Blackwood. He gets it from his mother, Ethan replied, automatically, then stopped. The air changed heavier, quieter. Grace noticed the shift immediately. I'm sorry for your loss, she said gently. Her voice carried empathy, not pity like someone who'd lived it too. Ethan blinked. How did you know I was talking about loss? The way your voice changed, Grace said softly. The tension in your shoulders. Some things are universal, no matter your tax bracket. Ethan studied her, struck by her perception. You notice a lot. For someone who supposedly just brings food to tables. Noah had been following the conversation intently, sensing something important. Grace, he asked innocently, do you know how to help people who can't walk good? Grace froze. Her fingers tightened around her fork before she could hide it. Ethan saw it and filed it away. I know a little, she said quietly. Why do you ask, sweetheart? Because sometimes my legs don't work like other kids, Noah said softly. And the doctors can't fix it. But when you helped me with the crackers, it felt different. Better somehow. Grace's eyes softened, but her jaw tensed, a wave of emotion flashing before she hid it behind calm professionalism. She turned to him gently. Noah, would you mind if I looked at how you hold things, just to see if there are any little tricks that might help you? She glanced at Ethan, silently asking permission. He nodded, curiosity overtaking caution. Grace moved beside Noah, watching him carefully. His grip, his balance, the tension in his small arms. Her voice lowered, calm, assured. Can you make a fist for me? Good. Now wiggle your fingers but keep your thumb still. Perfect. Ethan listened, breath caught. Her tone had changed entirely from warm and casual to confident, clinical. Your fine motor control is actually quite good, she said. And Ethan's heart clenched. Fine motor control, that was the exact phrase Dr. Reed had used last week. Grace continued softly. Try this. When you reach for your cup, engage from your shoulder. Let the strength flow down your arm to your fingers instead of forcing it from your wrist. Noah tried it, and his hand steadied immediately. Ethan leaned forward, astonished. How did you know to do that? Grace hesitated. I've helped people before, with similar challenges. What people? Where? Ethan pressed. And don't tell me you learned this from serving coffee and pie. Grace sighed, the walls closing around her. It's complicated. Ethan's voice lowered, heavy with desperation. My son's condition is complicated too. So please help me understand how a waitress knows more about his motor skills than specialists from Johns Hopkins. Grace looked at Noah, still practicing the motion she'd taught him, smiling with pride. Then back at Ethan. Something in his eyes, the raw hope of a father, broke through her hesitation. I used to work in pediatric rehabilitation, she said quietly, before I came here. Ethan froze. The world shifted. "Used to?" he asked. "Why did you stop?" Grace looked down. "Because sometimes the medical world isn't as pure as people believe." Her tone held bitterness, the kind that came from personal betrayal. Ethan's voice softened. "That's cryptic." "It's honest," Grace replied. "Not everything can be solved with money and connections, Mr. Blackwood, even when you own hospitals." Her words cut deep, not cruelly, but truthfully. Ethan stared at her, recognizing something in her strength, something he'd lost long ago. "You're right," he said quietly. "Money can't cure Noah. 3 years and millions of dollars have proven that. But knowledge can help. Experience can make a difference. And right now, you seem to have both." Grace looked at him, startled by his honesty. "What exactly are you asking me?" she said carefully. Ethan leaned forward. "I'm asking you to help my son. Whatever it costs, whatever you need, whatever went wrong in your past. None of that matters if you can make Noah's life better." Noah looked up, eyes wide. "Grace, would you help me walk better? I promise I'll be good and do everything you say." Grace's composure cracked just a little. Her voice trembled. "Noah, you're already perfect just the way you are. Anything I might offer would only be tools to make things easier. So, you'll help?" Grace looked at Ethan, then Noah, and exhaled slowly. "I need to think about it," she said finally. "This is more complicated than you realize." Ethan reached into his jacket, pulled out a card, and wrote a number on the back. "Take all the time you need, but please consider it. Whatever happened before doesn't have to define what happens next." Their fingers brushed as she took the card. A small spark passed between them, unexpected, electric. "I should get back to work," Grace murmured, rising quickly. Her professional mask returned, but her cheeks were still flushed. Ethan watched her walk away, memorizing every detail. Her movements, her quiet control, the intelligence she tried to hide. Beside him, Noah grinned. "Daddy, can we come back tomorrow?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Yes, buddy, I think we will." 3 days passed before Ethan heard from her again. He was in the middle of a board meeting, a dozen executives, 3 continents, and a table full of numbers that suddenly felt irrelevant. His phone buzzed, an unfamiliar number. For a second, he almost ignored it. Then something in his gut told him to step outside. "Mr. Blackwood," came the voice, calm, formal, and steady. "This is Grace Carter from Sonny's Diner." Ethan's pulse jumped. "Grace, I was beginning to wonder if you'd decided against helping Noah." "I've been thinking about it," she said. "A lot." Her tone was quiet, careful, deliberate, as if she were about to cross a line she'd promised herself she never would. "If I agree to work with him," she continued, "there would need to be conditions." Ethan's lips curved slightly. "Of course there would. I expected nothing less." He leaned against the glass wall, lowering his voice. "I'm listening." "First," Grace said, "we do this properly. Not as a favor, not as charity, but as a professional therapeutic relationship." She paused. "I'll need to see his complete medical history, consult with his doctors, and build a real treatment plan." Ethan's reply was instant. "Done. What else?" "Second," she said, "we work at neutral locations, not your house, not the medical center. Somewhere Noah can feel comfortable and safe." Ethan nodded to himself, intrigued by her boundaries. "Any suggestions?" "There's a community center about 10 minutes from the diner," she said. "They have a small physical therapy space, clean, well-equipped, but not intimidating." "Sounds perfect." Grace hesitated. There's one more condition. I thought there might be. My past, she said quietly, is not up for discussion. You hired me to help Noah, not to satisfy your curiosity about why I'm serving coffee instead of practicing medicine. Her voice trembled just barely, but enough for Ethan to hear the weight behind it. He answered softly, Agreed. When do we start? There was a small silence. Then, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. I'll text you the address. Ethan smiled faintly. I'll be there. When the call ended, he stood there for a long moment, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Hope fragile, alive, and terrifying. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear. Ethan had barely slept. He'd spent half the night pacing between excitement for Noah's progress and a nervousness he refused to name. Noah, meanwhile, had been buzzing since dawn. He'd nicknamed her Grace the Helper. The community center was modest but bright, a converted warehouse filled with natural light and the faint smell of fresh paint. Ethan expected a slow, clinical introduction, paperwork, formalities. But when he stepped into the therapy room, he froze. Grace was already there, wearing black athletic gear, hair tied up, reviewing a thick folder of documents. She looked completely different from the diner, focused, confident, in her element. You've been busy, Ethan said quietly, scanning the setup. Mats, exercise bands, balance tools, charts. Grace looked up and smiled, her eyes warmer than he'd remembered. I told you, if we're doing this, we're doing it right. She crouched beside Noah. Are you ready to do some work today, champ? Noah nodded eagerly. What kind of work? The fun kind, she winked. But first, I need to understand exactly how your body works right now. Okay? For the next 30 minutes, Ethan stood in silence watching. Grace guided Noah through movements and small tests, turning them into games. She was patient, but precise, encouraging, yet analytical. Her attention to detail was astonishing. She noticed the smallest things, muscle fatigue, shoulder rotation, hand tension, and adjusted instantly. See how your arm wants to help your leg? She explained gently. That's your brain trying to balance you. We'll teach it to share the work differently. Noah giggled. It's like training my body to be friends. Exactly, Grace smiled. Your brain and body are a team. They just need better communication. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest, pride, awe, and gratitude. In just 30 minutes, Noah was moving better than he had in months. Grace handed him a small stress ball. Now squeeze. Good. Feel the difference when you start from your core. Yeah, Noah said, eyes wide. It's like my whole body listens at the same time. Ethan blinked back emotion. In all the sterile hospital rooms, in all the expensive therapies, he had never seen Noah light up like this. During a short break, he approached her quietly. Grace, where exactly did you train? Her expression changed just slightly. The guard came back up. I told you, she said softly, my background isn't up for discussion. Even when it's clearly world-class, Ethan said gently. You've done more for him in one session than months of traditional therapy. Grace smiled faintly. Progress can disappear quickly if we don't maintain consistency and boundaries. Ethan caught a flicker of pride in her eyes, despite her restraint. Before he could say more, Noah called out excitedly, Grace! Look! He was repeating one of the balance exercises, this time without her help. Grace clapped her hands together. Excellent work, Noah. You're getting the hang of it. She turned back to Ethan, her voice soft. He's remarkable. His neuroplasticity is exceptional for his condition. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Neuroplasticity. That's not basic physical therapy language. Grace blinked, realizing she'd said too much, and looked away. I read a lot, she murmured. Ethan's voice was low, sincere. Grace, whatever happened in your past, it doesn't change what I see. You have a gift, and Noah responds to you in ways I've never seen before. Grace's expression softened. Sometimes gifts come with prices that are too high to pay. Ethan wanted to press further, but something in her tone stopped him. Instead, he simply said, "What matters is that you're helping him now." "Thank you." Grace looked surprised, as if she'd expected interrogation, not gratitude. "You're welcome," she said quietly. "Same time next week?" "Absolutely." He hesitated, then added, "And Grace, whatever you used to do, wherever you trained, you're exactly what Noah needs now." As they packed up to leave, Noah ran to hug her. "You're the best helper ever. Will you be my friend too, not just my teacher?" Grace's eyes softened completely. "Of course, sweetheart." Ethan watched, struck by the warmth in her expression. For the first time in years, he saw his son laugh freely. He smiled quietly. Maybe, just maybe, their luck was finally changing. Tuesday morning began like any other. The city moved below Ethan's penthouse, calm, controlled, predictable, until one email changed everything. It slipped into his inbox between quarterly reports and merger proposals, subject line clinical and cold. "Regarding your son's new therapist, urgent medical ethics concern." At first, he almost deleted it. Probably spam. Then he saw her name, Grace Carter. Ethan froze. His chest tightened as he opened it. "Mr. Blackwood, I feel compelled to warn you about Grace Carter, currently using a false name. Her real identity is Dr. Grace Richardson. 3 years ago, she lost her medical license after a catastrophic patient death at St. Mary's Children's Hospital. Her unauthorized treatment left an 8-year-old permanently paralyzed. The court found falsified research data and gross negligence. I urge you to protect your son before history repeats itself." A concerned medical professional. Attached were scanned documents, court filings, board reviews, old headlines, photos of a younger Grace in a white lab coat, smiling before medical conference banners. Ethan's hands trembled. It was her. Same eyes, same face, different world. He scrolled through pages of text. It painted her as a rising star, a prodigy in pediatric neurology until the tragedy. A single treatment gone wrong. A child left paralyzed. A career destroyed. The betrayal hit like a blade. She hadn't just hidden her past. She'd lied. To him. To his son. How could he have been so blind? Then his phone buzzed a new message. From Grace Carter. "Hi Ethan, looking forward to Saturday. Noah's progress has been remarkable. I have new exercises that will help with his coordination. See you soon." Her casual warmth felt like mockery. He stared at the screen, fury and heartbreak warring inside him. She was still pretending, still lying. Ethan didn't wait. He hit call. "Grace Carter," she answered brightly, but her tone shifted the second she heard his silence. "Ethan, what's wrong? Is Noah okay?" "Timothy's fine," he said, then caught himself. "Noah's fine. It's you I'm worried about. Dr. Richardson." The line went dead quiet. Seconds passed heavy, endless. Then, in a whisper, "How did you find out?" "Someone who cares about my son sent me the truth," Ethan said coldly. "The question is, why didn't you?" "Ethan, please let me explain." "Explain what?" he snapped. How you lied about your identity. How you've been treating my son with methods designed by the same woman who paralyzed another child. How you pretended to be a waitress when you're a disgraced doctor hiding from your past. It wasn't malpractice. Grace's voice broke, trembling with years of buried pain. The treatment was working. The family was desperate, just like you. I was trying to save that little girl's mobility, not destroy it. The medical board disagreed, Ethan said bitterly. So did the court. So did the family whose daughter will never walk again because of your arrogance. Grace's sob cracked through the phone. You don't understand what really happened, she cried. The case, the evidence, it was all manipulated. I was set up by people who wanted to steal my research and destroy my credibility. Ethan laughed coldly. How convenient. Blame a conspiracy. I have proof, she said desperately. Documents, files that show what really happened. The people who ruined me have connections everywhere. Ethan, including in your world. He hesitated for just a breath. Something in her voice, raw, desperate, real, tugged at him. But anger was stronger. Even if that were true, he said quietly, you lied to me. You hid who you were. You put my son at risk. Please, Grace begged, don't take this away from Noah. You've seen his progress. My work helps him. It's based on real science, not the lies that destroyed me. Ethan's tone turned ice. The treatment stops now. Don't contact us again. If you try, I'll have security remove you personally. He ended the call, and for the first time in years, the silence in his office felt unbearable. He sank into his chair, staring out at the skyline. The empire he'd built, the glass, the power, the perfection, felt meaningless. But even as he tried to bury his anger, a single doubt gnawed at him. If Grace was dangerous, if her methods were wrong, then why was Noah getting better? Not worse. Better. The thought refused to leave him. By evening, Ethan found himself reading the email again. Line by line, looking closer, questioning details. Something about it felt off. Too perfect, too timed, too convenient. He needed answers. At 9 p.m., Ryan Cole, his private investigator, arrived at the penthouse, a man Ethan trusted with everything money couldn't buy. Marcus, whoever sent you this. Ethan, Ryan corrected himself quickly. Sorry, force of habit. He dropped a file on the table. I traced the email. Whoever wrote it has serious resources. Routed through multiple servers, hidden behind medical proxies. Ethan frowned. Can you find the source? Ryan nodded. It came from a law firm. One that specializes in medical patent disputes. Ethan's heart skipped. Patent disputes? Ryan spread out several papers across the marble table. Grace, Doctor. Richardson was working on a revolutionary protocol for neurological disorders in children, worth millions, maybe billions. The day before her trial, 3 senior colleagues at Street. Mary's filed patents using her research data word for word. Ethan's breath caught. He didn't need to be a doctor to see the pattern. They'd wanted her research. They'd needed her destroyed. Ryan continued. I also found evidence suggesting the patient's decline wasn't caused by her treatment at all. It came from a secondary drug administered by another doctor after Grace's protocol had already shown improvement. Ethan went still. Grace hadn't been lying. She'd been the victim. He stood up, voice hard. Ryan, I need everything. Every record, every statement, every suppressed file from that case, and I need it fast. Ryan blinked. That could take weeks. You've got 48 hours. Ethan said firmly. Money is no object. Pull every string we have. Ryan nodded grimly. Understood. When he left, Ethan stood alone in the vast, silent penthouse, staring out at the glittering city below. He'd accused her, condemned her, driven her away. And now, for the first time, he realized the woman he'd called a liar might have been the only one who ever told him the truth. 2 days later, Ryan Cole returned to the penthouse, and what he brought with him would change everything. The city outside was a blur of lights as he dropped a heavy folder on Ethan's glass table. Ethan, Ryan said quietly, you were right. Someone set her up. Ethan looked up slowly. Show me. Ryan spread out documents across the table, medical reports, financial records, patent filings. Dr. Grace Richardson, he began, was working on groundbreaking research in pediatric neuroplasticity. Her work could have revolutionized how we treat childhood motor disorders worth millions, maybe billions. Ethan's jaw tightened. Go on. Her department head doctor, Veronica Hale, saw the potential and wanted it for herself, so she orchestrated everything. When one of Grace's patients, a little girl named Lily Morgan, suffered complications, Hale used it as the perfect weapon. Ryan handed him a page, a medical chart. Lily's paralysis wasn't caused by Grace's therapy, he said. It came from a secondary medication given by Hale without Grace's consent. That drug reacted catastrophically with Grace's treatment protocol. Ethan's eyes narrowed. So Hale sabotaged her? Exactly, Ryan said. Then she falsified records, making it look like Grace was the one who administered it. The hospital board believed her. The court believed her. And Hale walked away with Grace's research and a $12 million grant filed under her own name. Ryan showed him the paperwork. Look. 3 days after Grace lost her license, Hale filed a patent using Grace's exact data, word for word. Ethan stared at the pages, fury rising. They destroyed her, to steal her life's work. Ryan nodded grimly. And it worked. Grace vanished, changed her name, started over, probably just trying to survive. Ethan sank into his chair, the truth crashing down like a wave. He'd accused her, threatened her, driven her away, all because he'd believed a lie. Ryan, he said hoarsely, I want everything, every suppressed testimony, every file, every witness. Reopen that entire case. That'll take time. You've got 48 hours, Ethan cut in. I don't care what it costs. Ryan nodded. I'll make it happen. The next 48 hours were chaos. Ethan's penthouse turned into a war room, walls covered with documents, names, timelines, emails, court transcripts, financial statements. Every line led back to one woman, Dr. Veronica Hale. Ryan's investigators traced donations from pharmaceutical companies straight to Hale's private accounts. They found doctored lab results, deleted data, even testimony from Grace's old attorney who admitted he'd been threatened into silence. When Ethan heard the recording, he clenched his fists so hard his knuckles whitened. I knew she was innocent, the lawyer said on tape. But they warned me if I defended her, my firm would be finished. So I folded. I let them destroy her. Ethan turned away, his throat tight. How many people let her take the fall? He whispered. Ryan didn't answer. He didn't need to. By Thursday evening, the full picture was clear. Grace Carter, Dr. Grace Richardson, had been innocent all along, framed, blacklisted, erased, and Ethan had been part of her final heartbreak. He stood by the window, the city glittering far below. He saw Grace in his mind, that first day in the diner, The warmth in her voice, the intelligence she tried to hide, and the way she'd looked at Noah like he wasn't broken, just waiting to be whole. He'd called her a liar, and now he realized she was the only person who'd ever told him the truth. Ryan appeared behind him. "There's one more thing," he said. "I found where she went." Ethan turned sharply. "Where?" "She quit the diner, packed her apartment, left no forwarding address. But one of my sources spotted her north of the city, a small town called Cedar Falls. She's staying at a bed and breakfast. Word is, she's thinking about taking a job at a clinic in Vancouver." Ethan grabbed his coat. "When did she leave?" 2 days ago. Then I still have time." "Ethan," Ryan warned, "even if you find her, getting her to trust you again, I'll earn it." Ethan said, "Whatever it takes." He paused at the elevator. "And Ryan, thank you." Ryan nodded. "Go get her." As the elevator doors closed, Ethan exhaled. He wasn't the same man who'd walked into that diner weeks ago. This wasn't about power anymore, or control, or pride. It was about redemption, and a woman who'd done the impossible not just for his son, but for him. The drive to Cedar Falls took 4 hours, 4 hours of silence, and a storm of thoughts Ethan couldn't quiet. Rain traced down the windshield as he drove through winding mountain roads, the world outside gray, blurred, fitting for the fog that filled his mind. He replayed every word he'd said to her, every accusation, every cruel assumption. He'd wanted to protect his son. Instead, he'd hurt the only person who truly could. By the time he reached the town, the rain had stopped, but the guilt hadn't. Cedar Falls was quiet, wrapped in autumn colors, old brick shops, a clock tower that ticked slow, patient seconds. And there, at the edge of town, a small bed and breakfast with a white porch light glowing through the mist. Ethan parked, his heart hammered harder than it ever had in a boardroom. He stepped out, the gravel crunching beneath his shoes. For the first time in a long time, Ethan Blackwood, the man who could buy anything, felt afraid. Grace Carter sat by the window of her rented room, typing on an old laptop. A steaming cup of tea sat beside her. The light was soft, catching the faint exhaustion on her face, the kind that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from years of fighting battles no one else could see. When she heard the knock on the door, her fingers froze. A pause, then another knock, firmer but uncertain. She rose slowly, heart beating unevenly, and opened the door. Her breath caught. "Ethan." He stood there, raincoat damp, eyes shadowed, exhaustion carved deep into his face. "Grace," he said softly, "please, don't close the door." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she stepped aside. He entered quietly. The room smelled of chamomile and paper. On the table, a stack of medical journals lay open, the top one bookmarked under neuroplasticity. "I didn't expect you to find me," she said finally. Her tone was even professional, guarded, but her hands trembled slightly as she poured him tea. "I didn't expect to deserve the chance," Ethan replied. She glanced up sharply. "That's new, hearing you admit you might not deserve something." He didn't argue. "I read everything, Grace. The reports, the case. Ryan found the real data, Hale's records, the falsified results." Her eyes widened, disbelief flickering to life. You looked into it?" "I didn't just look," he said. "I tore it apart. You were telling the truth, every word." She sank into the chair opposite him, her breath shaky. "For years, I thought no one would ever believe me again." Ethan's voice softened. "I didn't just fail to believe you. I helped bury you deeper, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make that right." Grace stared at him, searching his face for insincerity, for the man who'd once doubted her. But all she saw was regret, raw and real. She looked away, voice breaking. "You don't know what those years did to me. Every job I applied for closed door, every credential revoked. People looked at me like I was poison." Ethan's chest tightened. "I do know, because I looked at you that way too." Silence. Then he said quietly, "I came here to apologize, not because I expect forgiveness, but because you deserve the truth." Grace blinked back tears. "The truth? Ethan, the truth is that I'm tired of being the villain in everyone's story." He nodded slowly. "Then let me be the first to rewrite it." Her breath caught at the words. He leaned forward. "I have enough power, resources, and evidence to clear your name completely. Ryan's already building the legal case. We can reopen your license hearing within the month. You'll have your career back, your life back." Grace shook her head in disbelief. "Why would you do that for me? After everything?" Ethan's voice dropped low. "Because you saved my son. Because you gave him hope and gave me something I thought I'd lost." "What's that?" she whispered. "Faith," he said simply. "In people, in second chances." Grace turned away, blinking fast. Outside, the rain began again, gentle, rhythmic, like forgiveness falling softly on broken ground. "I don't know if I can go back," she said finally. "That world destroyed me once. I'm not sure I could survive it again." Ethan's gaze softened. "Then don't go back alone." She looked at him, startled. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you don't have to do this by yourself anymore. I'll stand with you through every hearing, every headline, every whisper." Grace shook her head, half laughing through tears. "You don't owe me that." "I know," he said gently, "but I need to." Their eyes met, and for the first time since that terrible call, she saw not the CEO, not the man of control and calculation, but a father, stripped of pride, reaching for redemption. She smiled faintly. "Ethan, you have no idea how many times I wished someone would just believe me again." He exhaled slowly. "Then start now. Believe that I do." They sat in silence for a long time, no more explanations, no more defenses. Just two people who'd finally stopped running from their mistakes. Then Grace whispered, "When do we start?" Ethan's lips curved into a soft smile. "Tomorrow. We take back what was stolen together." That night, as Ethan drove back through the rain, he felt something shift inside him. For years, his life had been about control, money, reputation, power, but now, for the first time, it was about purpose. And that purpose had a name: Grace Carter. 3 weeks later, the world began to whisper the name Dr. Grace Richardson again, only this time not with scandal, but with hope. Ethan had moved mountains. He'd hired the best legal minds, reopened the case, and presented evidence that shattered the original verdict. Every document, every falsified record, every financial transfer from Dr. Veronica Hale's accounts laid bare. The hearing was scheduled for Monday morning. Location: State Medical Board of New York. Grace stood in front of the mirror that morning, adjusting a simple navy blazer. Her reflection stared back, older, steadier, but still marked by the weight of what she'd lost. Ethan appeared behind her in the mirror's reflection. "You're ready," he said softly. Grace managed a small smile. "I've been ready for 3 years, Ethan. I just never thought I'd actually get the chance." He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You earned this chance. All I did was give the truth a microphone. The hearing room was cold. Rows of journalists filled the back. The board members sat like judges, faces unreadable. Grace took her seat beside Ethan and Ryan Cole, who was now acting as her lead investigator. Across the room sat Dr. Veronica Hale, poised, impeccably dressed, the woman who had stolen everything. When Grace looked at her, it wasn't anger that filled her chest. It was calm, a strength that came from finally having nothing left to hide. The board chair spoke first. "Dr. Richardson, or should I say, Miss Carter, we've reviewed your appeal. You're asking this board to reinstate your medical license after a case that resulted in permanent harm to a patient. Do you have anything to say before we proceed?" Grace stood. Her voice was steady, low, warm, resonant. "Yes, I have something to say. For 3 years, I lived as a ghost. People believed I'd failed a child, and I carried that guilt every day. But the truth was buried under greed, under power, under the fear of people who couldn't stand the idea of being wrong." She paused. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were unwavering. "I didn't come here to beg for forgiveness. I came here to restore what every patient deserves, a doctor who will fight for them, even when the system doesn't." The room was silent. Then Ethan rose. "May I address the board?" The chair nodded. He walked to the front, his voice calm, deliberate, commanding. "My name is Ethan Blackwood. My son, Noah, was born with a rare neurological disorder. We spent millions, saw every specialist you can name, and no one helped him, until Grace Carter." Gasps rippled through the audience. "She didn't just help him walk," Ethan continued. "She gave him confidence. She gave him joy. She made him believe in himself again, and she did it using the very same techniques she was once condemned for." He turned toward Hale, his tone sharpening. "Because they weren't dangerous. They were revolutionary. And you, Dr. Hale, stole them," the board murmured. Veronica Hale's composure cracked for the first time. Her jaw tightened. "This is absurd," she snapped. "Those methods were unproven," Ryan interrupted, sliding a thick folder across the table. "Unproven? Then perhaps you can explain why your grant proposal uses Dr. Richardson's research verbatim, or why the family of Lily Morgan now admits you manipulated their testimony." The chair leaned forward. "Is this true, Dr. Hale?" Veronica's silence said everything. Reporters' cameras flashed. The sound echoed like a verdict. Grace closed her eyes, a tear escaping not from pain, but release. The board chair cleared his throat. "Dr. Richardson, it appears justice failed you once. We intend to correct that mistake." He signed the paper before him. "With immediate effect, your medical license is reinstated." The room erupted, reporters shouting questions, flashes blinding. But Grace only heard one thing, a small voice calling from the doorway. "Mum!" She turned, and there was Noah running toward her. No crutches, no hesitation, just pure, effortless motion. He leapt into her arms. "Look what I can do," he said, laughing breathlessly. Grace held him tight, her tears falling freely now. "I see, sweetheart, I see." Ethan stood behind them, hands in his pockets, eyes glistening. For the first time in years, he let himself cry. Outside the courthouse, cameras followed them down the steps. Journalists shouted questions, but Grace didn't speak. She didn't need to. Ethan reached for her hand, and for once, she didn't pull away. He leaned in, whispering so only she could hear. "You did it." She looked up at him, sunlight catching the streaks of gold in her hair. "No, she said softly. We did. That evening, headlines filled every screen. Disgraced doctor, proven innocent, conspiracy exposed. The waitress who healed a millionaire's son. Doctor, Grace Richardson returns, redemption achieved. But inside Ethan's penthouse, things were quiet, peaceful. Noah practiced his exercises in the living room while Grace looked out over the skyline. Ethan joined her, handing her a glass of wine. You changed everything today, he said. Grace smiled faintly. So did you. Their eyes met, no longer strangers divided by mistrust, but equals bound by truth, forgiveness, and something even deeper. 6 months later, New York woke up to a new headline. The Richardson Foundation opens a future for every child who deserves to walk. The photos showed Dr. Grace Richardson standing beside Ethan Blackwood and Noah, cutting the red ribbon before a glass building that shimmered in the morning light. Behind them, a banner read, Where Science Meets Compassion. Inside the research wing, laughter replaced the old echoes of guilt. Children moved between therapy stations, some in braces, some on walkers, all surrounded by doctors who believed in possibilities, not limits. Grace walked through the lab, her white coat swaying slightly with each step. She stopped by Noah's therapy room and smiled. He was showing a group of younger patients how to balance on one foot, his voice confident, his smile radiant. Remember, Noah said proudly, you don't force your legs, you talk to them, you make them listen. Grace laughed softly. That's exactly what I told him, she said as Ethan came up beside her. He listens to you better than to me, Ethan replied, smiling. Always did. They stood together, watching their son not just walk, but teach others how to hope again. Every time I see him like that, Grace whispered, I remember the day in the diner when he couldn't even open a packet of crackers. Ethan looked at her. And I remember the waitress who taught him how. She smiled, her eyes bright with warmth. That waitress doesn't exist anymore. Yes, she does, Ethan said gently. She just learned how to shine in the light instead of hiding in the shadows. That evening, the foundation hosted a small celebration. Doctors, families, and patients filled the hall. Music played softly beneath strings of golden lights. Grace stepped up to the podium. When she spoke, the room fell quiet. 3 years ago, she began, I lost everything, my career, my reputation, my purpose. And then one day, a boy and his father walked into a diner. She paused, her eyes finding Ethan and Noah in the crowd. That day changed everything. It reminded me that miracles don't always look like what we expect. Sometimes they come disguised as small kindnesses, a helping hand, a patient smile, or a grilled cheese sandwich shared at a table by the window. Laughter rippled through the crowd, soft and heartfelt. But what truly heals us, she continued, is not medicine. It's faith, faith in others, and faith in ourselves, even when the world has stopped believing. Applause filled the hall, long, thunderous, genuine. Ethan stood, clapping with pride. Noah climbed onto his chair and shouted, "That's my mom!" The room laughed, and Grace's eyes shimmered as she wiped a tear. Later that night, after the guests were gone, Grace and Ethan stood on the balcony overlooking the city. The skyline glittered not as a reminder of power, but as proof of how far they'd come. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't walked into that diner?" Ethan asked. Grace smiled. "No, because the universe would have found another way to make us meet. Some stories are meant to happen." He slipped his arm around her waist. "And this time," he whispered, No more secrets, no more running. She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Only forward," she said softly. "Only light." Months later, headlines returned. Noah Blackwood, age 8, walks unassisted across the stage at the Pediatric Research Gala. The photo captured him holding Grace's hand, his steps steady, proud. Behind them, Ethan stood smiling, his eyes filled with something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. As the camera lights flashed, Grace leaned down and whispered to Noah, "You did it." He grinned. "We did it." She looked up at Ethan, and he mouthed the same words. "We did." The story that began in a small diner ended not with tragedy, but with transformation. Grace found her redemption. Ethan found his faith. And Noah, the boy who couldn't walk, taught them both how to move forward. Sometimes miracles aren't loud. They don't arrive in lightning or applause. Sometimes they begin quietly with a simple act of kindness and the courage to believe again.